Okay, welcome back. So we're going to talk about the four food groups of Second Life. These are the things that make Second Life go, and we can pretty much extract all of them. The first thing is a humble prim. This was the building blocks of old. Most back in the day, pretty much all of Second Life was made with this guy and its variations: the triangle, the sphere, the tortoise or the donut, and the cylinder. So not a lot of these are still around, but there are still some things that are around that may hold, what's that word? Sentimental value or whatever you may like, and you may see it and go, I would like to extract that and back that up or send that over to my place over on the open sim. So you can totally do that with this. The next is Sculpty, which was the first generation mesh in Second Life. She be heavy, but she was abundant. There were a bunch of Sculpties around, and everybody used them. You'll still see some around, sort of, kinda today. Not as much as it used to be back in the day, since mesh came. But there are still some good Sculpty items around that make really good bases and are great for creating. The next thing in Second Life that people still, which I'm surprised to say still use, is the Flexi Prim. And that is a prim that has flexi physical traits attached to it that makes it all wiggly like this. I swore this died out with the dodo, but I occasionally get people who message me and ask me how to make physics hair. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I never knew. Whenever I tried to do it, I just bought bases because those were popular back in the day. So I would buy bases, or I would get hair and then swipe it like I'm doing now and then pull the flexy parts off of it and create my own hair. I just noticed I don't have the backs of my legs. Where did my legs go? Oh well. Alright, and now, last but not least, we have the mesh, which is the latest addition to Second Life, and it's what everybody uses. This here bees a static mesh. It is a 3D item that is made in an outside program and imported into Second Life, sort of like the Sculpty, but supposedly more efficient, which was designed to be more efficient, but with its heavy ass poly use that people do, it's more damning than the Sculpty could ever be. And yet we love it. So, those are the four food groups of Second Life, and I will show you how to extract them, beginning with our humble cube. So, if you have any item, you need to know which type you're doing, because for the most part, the prim, the sculpt, the flex can all be extracted the same way. However, the mesh cannot be extracted the same way as these guys because it needs a whole different system. So I'm going to show you how to extract these guys first, and then we're going to talk about how we get to the mesh guy right here. So if you want to know what type of item you're working with, the easiest way to identify it is to click on it and then go to the object panel, and it will tell you what it is in this sort of tab over here in the upper right hand side of the box. For example, since we have a box here, it says that this is in fact a box, and it gives you all the parameters that made the box go. Now, we were working with a Sculpty, it would switch over and it wouldn't have anything here because I have multiple items selected, so I'm just going to select on the Sculpty. It would say that the item is sculpted and show you this Sculpty map that's here, this cute rainbow texture like thing. It's a picture, but inside of that picture is a little 3D information, really old tech, and it brings out a mesh object. Sculpted object for you to use. So, back in the day, we used to take pictures of the screenshots of the map and then bring it back in and be like, yay, we got Sculpties. But, we don't have to do that nowadays. You can just use the viewer and extract it as well. Now, Flexi is another thing. It would still come up as a box. However, if you go to the Features tab, you will see that it says Flexible Path, and it has all of the, details on what makes the flexi go. So that's how you know you're dealing with a flexi. Plus, if you were to move the item and you see that it is moving like so, that's a really good indicator that it's flexi. Now when it comes to mesh, when you select it and go into the object, it will say that it has the mesh information here, and it will tell you all the details that make the mesh go, like how many triangles it has on its highest setting, how many it has on its lowest setting, and all the rest of that fun details that like land impact, how many frames per second lag is adding to your viewer by resing it out, you know, things like that, or what your viewer could be when it's lower down there. I don't know, I really don't pay attention to the stats, but you know, you really should. So that's how you can identify what mesh that, or what object or what type of object you're working with. So now that we know what these are and how to do it, let's talk about extracting them. So these guys over here, I didn't mean to slip the stuff in the background. These guys, the box, the sculpt, the hair, can be exported from Second Life via the XML exporter. Now, before I get into this and you guys say, but Zero, in that old tutorial you did on mesh extraction, you said that we had to right click on it and do XML export for the mesh. What do you mean we can't do that with this one? Well, my darlings, I will explain to you what I mean by that. So, first thing is, when you are, what's it called? I'm trying to scoot that out of the way. Alright, there you go. No more distractions, please. Thank you. Okay, so when you extract mesh from XML, you cannot bring it back in. You can XML export mesh, but once it's XML exported out, you're going to have to run it through a secondary program like Mesh Helper in order for it to work. Otherwise, when you try to import it in, your viewer will crash, or it will say something like, you cannot edit this type of shape. So that's what I meant by XML export. So ignore that for right now. Trust me, I'll teach you how to export your mesh. But first, let's get down to the basics. Okay, so we're going to start with a cube, and we're going to export this baby out. So two ways of XML exporting. One is to XML export for backup, and then the other is to XML export for copy. Backup means that you are going to go to file, like right click on it, and then Hydra storm, and then do XML export, and then it'll tell you all the stuff, and then you can click here to download the textures. Now, what do we check that box? We check that box for two reasons. One, when we do the one, we may want the textures. Two, if you're exporting a prim or sculpted this stuff into OpenSim, you need to have a copy of the textures in order for it to import in properly. When we are doing the XML import in Second Life, like export and then import it back in, it's calling the textures from the Second Life server that are already here and importing them in. If you were to do that with OpenSim, it wouldn't work the same, because it's calling for textures on a server that it's not connected to. So all the stuff will come out with a blank texture or the typical wood texture, which we don't want. So you want to select the download textures and download the textures for it to pull from a folder. So it will save to a folder and called assets, and when you go to import it in OpenSim, it will bring the files and textures in from that folder instead of calling it from the Second Life server. Does that make sense? Okay, well, just watch. So we do the export and we do cube. I did it already, so we don't have to. And then we can just import it back in. So we would go to upload, import XML, select our XML, and then you don't want to check upload textures, because if you upload the textures, you will have to pay for every texture that is inside that asset folder that we just created. Now, one of the things good thing about that is if you were to export something that is textured and you want all the textures to be labeled under your name, that way whoever the textures originally belonged to, they look at it and be like, hey, that's my texture. Look how I click on this and it's going right to the texture that's in my inventory. And you don't want that to happen. Then you would press the upload texture button and it will upload all those textures for you under your name, and it says that you are the creator of these textures. The downside to that is that you have to pay for all of that when it does it, and it's 10L per texture. So make sure that you have that covered when you're doing it. So now we're just going to hit import, and as you see, we have our cube here, just a copy of our cube. Now, as it goes to this one, our Sculpty and our Flexi, it's exactly the same thing, but I'm going to show you a different method called Copy XML, which will allow you to build the item in World without having to export it as an XML file and importing it back in. Now, this is great for if you're just like, oh crap, I need a copy of this real quick and don't feel like saving something to your desktop. If you want, or whatever, if you're short on desktop space, it's a quick way to do it, but you won't be able to import that whenever. You'll have to click on it and copy it. So let's get into that. So let's click on our here, just our example here, and we're going to do the same thing and go to Hydra Storm and then XML Export, and then we are going to press make a copy, and it will start making a copy right wherever your camera is, I think. Now the thing is, it will bundle in like this when it's doing it, so you want to make sure that you're in a nice secure place where people won't be looking at you while you do it, because you always get that one person like, hey, stop Copybotting, and then you just give them the finger. So we'll just wait for that to upload. Don't be scared about the bricks. Trust me, the texture will apply itself once it all comes in. John, there you go. Look at that, a perfect copy of some old hair. So now the textures are in here. The stuff is yours. It is your hair now will have the name of this, and it will have the textures on it. However, like I said before, when you select the textures and you go to click on it, it will not let you make a copy of the texture. It will still be on the person who created the texture. So yeah, that. So remember what I said about the texture thing. Now that we have that extruded. Now that we have that done, it's time to focus on the diva here, the ye olde mesh. Now mesh is a devil all on its own and requires its own sort of tutorial. I should probably make a video by itself, but since it's static extraction, I guess it's fine. So what we do with static extraction is that we can res the mesh down or have mesh anywhere, and we just need to extract it. So it's just right click, save as, and then collada, and it will give you all the textures and stuff you need in order to make that go. So I'm just going to save it again to our tutorial file folder. It was supposed to be tutorial, but I missed. So we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure that it really doesn't have, oh no, that's old. Before we couldn't have special characters in it, but right now I think we're fine, so we can just hit file, export, and then let it go. Now, if all is well, and when we go to our desktop, I have two screens now, I keep overshooting. Alright, so when we go to our desktop, our tutorial file, it will have, as you see, our day file of the hair, as well as the two textures that were on it. Yee. Now, the thing about this is that you will have to import the back into Second Life, and it will charge you for importing this stuff back in. So we want to go to file, upload mesh, crystal hair, undo low and low is 0 because I am not rich. Calculate weights and fees. Now if it is a static mesh, it will come in with the textures if you press the button for textures. Oh, figure that. Huh. Look at that. Oh yeah, because it's static. Okay, so when you have the static and you calculate the weights and fees and texture stuff, it is like $34 for me to upload this hair. It may cost less, it may cost more for you when you do it because of the textures and all that jazz. So when we put her down on the ground, you will see that it's a flippin' mess. I mean, that's to be expected because by default it already has alpha blending on some stuff and then some things are not. So you will have to go in there and manually change it to make sure that your textures look fine. So it's good to have the original around. So this one has no alphas whatsoever. So we're going to select the face, link set, none. And select this, and then maybe alpha masking. Is it masking or is it blending? Blending. Okay. Blending it is. Texture. None. Why does it look so butt? Oh wait, because it's alpha blending, alpha none. Well, this is a pickle. Let's see. I'm sure somebody's over there laughing at me right about now. And to that I say, shut up. This happens every now and then. I can't control it. Okay. Something's definitely wrong. Methinks. Okay, sometimes this happens. Where the textures won't lay the same. So we just copy this and then put paste and I feel like what's her name? I'm just gonna unlink this real quick. And then this. This right here. 1. Can I copy the stuff from this? 1 3 5 and this and this is 1. Oh. Alright, this sucks. Why did it break? Okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right back and I'm gonna go poke this and then tell you what I did. Okay, so I'm trying what I thought was gonna work, but it seems like first let me fix that because it's kind of annoying. Okay, so I thought that was going to work, but it seems it didn't. But sometimes this happens, so I'm glad that it did because now I get to show you what happens just in case it doesn't happen. So let's bring it in. Let's reel her in, boys. Come on. In a minute now. Just see if fixing it up in Blender would work. Oh, I'll be back. It's taking forever. Okay, so I'm in Blender, so let's see what happens. I'm gonna go into Collage Day. It's so weird that that happened. Tutorial, bring in my crystal here. And then we're gonna look at it real quick. I'm going to join it for the sake of arguing. Select it all. Turn on my screencast so you guys see what I'm doing besides my mumbling of directions. Okay, so let's see. So we have our hair. Select it and press Ctrl J and remove all the extra triangles. Press compare UV maps just in case something happened. I'm going to press N and bring open my secondary window, UV editor, look at my UV maps, press A and select everything over there, press N over here and look and see if there's anything out of sorts. It is not. I'm going to go to open and we're going to look at our tutorial folder where the hair texture is and select the hair texture, put it in. Then I'm going to go to display and do the hair location and it looks absolutely fine. I don't know why in that blinking blue blazes it came out so weird in Second Life, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Sometimes this happens. So we're just going to bring it in, put a texture on it, look at it, and then export it out. And because it's not rigged right now, we're just using the static version of this hair, we can do this without it having to rig it. So what I want to do is separate it from here by materials, and it should give it, oh ding dangle, it not flaps. Okay, so what I want to do real quick is go all the way back to right before we joined it, and I want to select each one of these things. See what I meant by mesh being an entirely different beast? This could have been a whole tutorial on its own. Okay, but we're going to select the parts of the hair that's already in groups, and we're going to give them their own material. So I'm just going to delete this real quick and give it a material here. And I'm going to put it to a different layer because that's just how I roll. Make sure everything is organized. Material Z, so it's actually 2 parts. So one material A, material this, and then this one has its own. So 1, 0, this. Everybody's on their own. Great. So next we're going to do the same thing we did again. Join it all together. Press J. This. I have sparkles, so if there's ever a texture error, all I have to do is press N and then do the stuff. There's a tutorial on that already, so we don't have to do that. Next thing we're going to do is look at the texture, put it on here, see how she flows. She's beautiful. Then we're going to take everything again and then go into edit mode, press P, select by material, so then we have this one and that one, and then we can select our gems up yonder and select the gem material. So then it looks exactly like it should do. I'm not going to join them together. I'm just going to select them all as one bundle. And then I'm going to export it out. Now, one of the good things about being able to do this is that you actually have the option to modify it if you want to. For example, even though the hair is already pretty and low standards by Second Life hair standards, that's the word, you can actually decimate it some more if you want to make it more efficient for your character if you find the stuff is a little too laggy. So this isn't the way we wanted it to go, but it's a nice little side tour. So when our hair is all jacked up, because it is not rigged right now, we're just going to go to the operator settings and then hit static and then export it out. So once we have it exported out, I'm just going to come back here in Second Life on that account that has a little bit of change, and we're going to try to import it again. Now, there's a good chance that it may fail again, because you really aren't supposed to use this version of Hydra for importing mesh. It is an exporter, not an importer. So it may come out wrong, but I'm doing it this way because I want to. And I'm too lazy to load up another Firestorm. Okay, so I'm going to bring this in and see how she dances. Fingers crossed, everyone. And toes too for any frogs watching. And we see we import it in. And then we apply the texture. The texture that I don't have. Okay, so we import the texture. Yeah, looking good. Looking good, looking good. And then we have the stuff on top. So all of that worked. Sometimes you just have to take the long way. So then we have our hair texture in here, and this one had no alpha. The other one did on top of it, and then we have our shiny stuff. Now, sometimes, actually all the time, when you are exporting mesh from Second Life using the standard I'm just going to use the pretty one. Using the standard mesh extractor, it will only give you the diffuse textures, the plain old one. It does not give you the normal maps or the spec maps. Those you have to extract manually. So to extract the textures that go under it, the diffuse and the shiny, we're going to go take a look at the original hair and see if it has some. And you can do this by going to right click on it, and then it is the object. You know, he changed it around the last time. So it's like Hydra and spec textures, and you see that it does have diffuse maps and it has one spec map for the gems. So all we have to do is just copy that to inventory, or copy selected to inventory, and then hit save if you wanted to. And you can save it as a TGA or ow, my thing just dinged in my ear. Save it as ping or whatever. I like pings more than TGAs. And then you just import it back in. Or if you don't want to do that, all you have to do is just copy the UUID and select the gems. Go to shiny, import UUD, paste, apply UUD. And then you would look at it, the original, and see how the shininess is. But I'm assuming because it's a crystal, it's got max shine on it. At least that's what I would do. So I'm going to just select it. Turn the shiny up. Now it only works if you have a viewer with lighting already on it. There you go. So you can see that it's got the shinies. Shiny. I love saying it. Ever since the episode of Futurama, when they were going down the list of Bender's top words he likes to say, and shiny was said like that, I've always said shiny like that. It stopped being shiny and there's a shiny. Yeah, the rest of them is a little kiss my shiny metal daffodil. Maybe a little glow in there, because I never seen crystals not glow before. So we got our shiny glowy crystals on top of our hair, and because it's supposed to be magical hair, we can add a smidgen of glow, just a smidgen. 3. There you go. I was gonna say like that's Brazilian smidgen. Every one of my Brazilian friends, whenever I ask them to put a little bit of glow on their products, they're like, oh, just a little bit of glow. There you go. Barely noticeable. Okay, so sorry. Y'all know I love my Brazilian peoples. Alright, so there we have a copy of the hair, and that we can work it. So yes, I'm using this hair. Yes, it is Linden hair from the SLB 15 event, and yes, I can use this. They just said as long as it's not for anything nefarious. And I don't think this is nefarious to you. Anyway, so we got our stuff here. We have our mesh here, this, that, and that. So now we're going to go into the wonderful world of extraction of rigged mesh, which if you thought mesh was a beast, you'd never seen nothing yet when it came to rigged mesh. So we'll talk about that in the next video because this one's already gone long. So see you guys in the next video of our tutorial, and I hope I see you. If not, good hanging with you.